Interesting episode from this past January. I'm joined by two amazing individuals from CURIO Wellness, Ms. Wendy Bronfine, the co-founder, chief brand officer, and director of public policy, and Jarrell Registry, the fund managing director. Now, Jarrell was on Green Enterprise earlier this year, and as I learned from his interview, among many things, I don't think that there are many better voices that can really talk us through raising capital and the financial hurdles associated with starting a cannabis business or any other business, to be honest. And likewise, Wendy as CBO is going to talk to us about, CURIO's new branding of retail locations that's been announced this week. So we're getting to learn these lessons and get some of this insight in real time. So it's a big week for CURIO Wellness. I'm looking forward to discussing with you all the rebrand and the updates for the investment fund. And, Wendy and Jarrell, thank you for being with us. And just in general, how are y'all doing today?
Doing well. It's an exciting week. So it represents kind of a real start to a journey that we've been preparing for a long time.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's a pretty great week for us. So we're excited to share this with the world.
Amazing. Thank you for being with us. And, I like to start all of these conversations with your personal stories. Now, Jarrell, you've been on before, so I know there are going to be some viewers that have heard your story, but for everybody's edification, we just want to know, what your professional background is, how you came to be in the cannabis industry, and what you're currently doing. So, Jarrell, why don't we start there with you?
Sure. So I've been with CURIO for about 2.5 years now. I joined specifically to start the fund component of this broader franchising effort, really intended to provide capital to diverse entrepreneurs looking to get into the cannabis space. And the reason I came to CURIO to lead that effort was mostly because my background is all in finance. So I started my career at General Electric in their commercial finance business, in their financial management program, then went back to business school at Duke. After Duke, I worked with JP Morgan in the investment bank covering insurance companies and reinsurers, and then met Michael Bronfine, who hired me, our CEO here at CURIO. He hired me into Sterling Partners. At the time, he was the head of the healthcare services investment platform. So he brought me into Sterling to work actually very directly with him on capital issues, but also just making sure that we were setting the businesses on the right footing, so that as they scaled and got bigger and found commercial success, that translated into financial success. So I did that for just shy of 5 years, and then had my own consulting company where I did similar work for smaller companies. And then as the end of 2018 came around, Michael reached out and asked me if I'd like to join CURIO to start the fund.
Amazing. And Wendy, you wear a lot of very, very important hats. And I know that this week really, really means a lot to you, especially as a co-founder and, CBO, public policy director. Really, really interested in your background as well. And tell us a little bit more about what you do at CURIO.
Hi. So my background actually starts in media. So prior to starting this business with my family, I worked in television industry. I worked specifically on productions of individual shows, and then I moved to the network side and worked in branding and marketing. And then when Michael and I collaborated to start CURIO Wellness, it was his healthcare background and my branding background to build the company out. And we're really excited now to sort of get into a secondary branding effort with the rebrand of our wellness center concept into this new company, Far and Daughter, which if you don't speak Swedish, is Swedish for father and daughter, and is a nod to our roots. And we felt was pretty connective to our goals to build generational wealth for many people who take up this franchise, and specifically look to the fund, that audience. We really were thinking about how, owning your own business is a great way to create generational wealth, and that usually is a family business, and that's what we are.
That's amazing. Congratulations to you both. And you mentioned the funds, Jarrell, you mentioned the fund briefly as well. And I know you talked about it as extensively as you could. back in January, but also a big week for it as well. And I want to walk through that, but I want to sort of unpack the issue of capital and raising capital to start a cannabis business for anybody who's viewing right now. So as we're aware, capital is undoubtedly one of the biggest barriers, if not the biggest barrier to entry to starting a cannabis business. And just with your experience in cannabis, can you sort of frame this issue for our viewers in greater context?
Sure. So I really think of access to capital as really a two-pronged issue, particularly with where in the case of diversity, where within the cannabis industry, capital is a difficult issue because of the federal illegality of the industry. So federally chartered banks, so think of the big name brand banks, generally are unable to provide financing into the industry. They can't make loans into the industry. Typically, they also don't offer kind of what you would refer to as traditional banking, so checking and savings accounts, that sort. Most of the banking that occurs in the industry is through state chartered banks, and that's mostly a provision to enable cannabis businesses to have checking accounts, really, is and be able to process payroll, if you will. The challenge there is lending from banks is often the kind of best first place to turn when you're starting a business. So by removing the capital available from federally chartered banks, you've created a real barrier in the industry to people starting businesses in kind of the traditional path, right? So now you're looking at accessing capital from the perspective of raising money, right? Which is in and of itself a very difficult path, and that kind of feeds right into the challenge that diverse entrepreneurs face, right? Because historically, diverse entrepreneurs have a much more difficult time raising significant amounts of capital to launch businesses, whether in cannabis or otherwise. So you find among cannabis licensees, there are far fewer diverse candidates, partially attributable to this kind of legacy of a challenge around entrepreneurship and venture capital for diverse entrepreneurs, but also compounded by just the structure of the cannabis industry and how it has some extra hurdles around capital and financing.
Amazing. I want to get into the nuts and bolts, if you will, of the fund. But before that, minority representation in cannabis marketplaces across all licenses is low. In fact, representation from Black owners is reported to be somewhere between 2 and 3%. So I really love and respect the fact that you all are, targeting a diverse array of business owners specifically with this fund. And just in general, Wendy, as a co-founder, you mentioned the importance of the name and the rebrand for your retail locations. How does it feel to be able to launch these opportunities specifically for a diverse array of entrepreneurs?
Yes, so we're really excited about this opportunity, especially as it relates to the fund. I mean, to be clear, the franchise is an opportunity to open to anyone, but really this whole concept was built out of the diversity issue. So if I take you back in the summer of 2018, our CEO and a colleague and friend of his, who's also an investor named Theo Rogers, came together. And this sort of idea to say, well, what if we were to franchise the wellness concept, which has less infrastructure to build than, say, some of the wholesale side, it can be extremely profitable. And sometimes in more recent years in this industry, those licenses have turned over at much higher values, to be honest, than some of the wholesale sides of the business. But that if you had a franchise of that, and then you solve this issue for capital by giving people the funds they needed to start up, not only providing the capital, but doing that at favorable terms and providing an exit strategy, that would actually really be a real solution. A lot, as we watch in our industry, there are seminars, there's workshops, there are grants here and there, but you really needed a meaty pile of cash, so to speak, to really get there. And so we thought, well, if we could bring that private equity background and get that investment fund and then apply it to a diverse group of people, we could really change the game here, because as Jarrell said, you can't walk into a bank and say, I'd like to get a small business loan to do this. So until that piece of the puzzle is corrected, providing that access to capital to start the business is really, I feel a significant solution in the social equity conversation.
I agree. And, Jarrell, I watched your interview from January and I rewatched it. And I feel like it's safe to call you, I'm just going to call you the equity guru. And I don't think anybody is going to be able to talk to us like in nuts and bolts detail as you will be able to in this conversation. And it's very timely as all of these marketplaces are coming online, particularly in the Northeast. So let's just do a bit of a deeper dive on the fund itself, and then we'll talk a little bit about the franchise opportunities. Just, we talked about a little bit in January. Let's talk about a little bit, build a little bit on the inception of it that Wendy talked about. And then let's just talk truly about how it works. Like, if I'm interested in this, is there an application process? How do I apply? Is it restricted to certain states? Let's just walk through it all.
Sure. So the easiest cut, number one, thanks. That was pretty high praise that you gave me. I appreciate the compliment. But the easiest place to start is when and where, right? So we are very much dependent on the states when they're making dispensary licenses available, right? So particularly in the case where someone doesn't currently have a license and they would be looking to become a franchisee and then apply for a license. It all kind of tees up based on when the state makes licenses available. We do have opportunities for existing licensees. So someone who has a wellness center or has a dispensary and would like to convert it to our franchised wellness center model, that can be a much more streamlined process from a decision-making perspective in terms of them learning about the franchise opportunity and choosing to join our program. But that's kind of the two lanes for becoming a franchisee within the Far & Daughter network. In terms of the process of applying, just this week, we've brought online the fardaughter.com, our Far & Daughter website, that really is the initial portal to indicating your interest in learning more about the franchise opportunity. So I'd encourage everyone to go visit that website. There is information about accessing the fund and being evaluated by the fund, but really it starts with identifying yourself. So through our contact form, that you're interested in learning more about the franchise opportunity. And within that contact form, there's a space to indicate that you're interested in being considered for fund sponsorship, right? And what that fund sponsorship really means is that as a franchisee, let's just take the kind of my most expected circumstance in which someone is looking to apply as a franchisee, secure our support in pursuing a license opportunity, and then opening their wellness center. From that perspective, they'll apply through the website, they'll make contact with our sales team, they'll go through the evaluation process in which they're learning about the franchise opportunity, but also giving us a view into whether or not they're the right candidate for our program. And assuming all goes well, we'll come to an agreement and kind of fill out the paperwork, if you will. And as you complete the paperwork in the fund sponsored case, we require the franchisee to bring at least $40,000 to the table. And what that represents is really their commitment to the financial success of their store, right? From that perspective, as they're able to bring $40,000 to the table, we'll make available the rest of the capital necessary to get a store open.
Got it. And that, just to back up just a little bit, what are you looking for? I imagine you're going to get a lot of individuals who are going to look at this fund, and then everybody's going to be hitting up the website trying to take advantage of this opportunity. But what are you looking for in terms of selecting individuals who you will support with the fund?
Sure. So the first and foremost, we want entrepreneurs. We want people who want to build a business, because one of the items that we talk a lot internally about how to be supportive in our outreach, right? To make sure that people understand exactly what this opportunity represents. It's the chance to build a business, right? So we talk about the supports that we offer through the franchise as, a business in a box, or we'll kind of casually talk about the degree of support that we offer, which is significant. But we also we want to give those tools to someone who is going to carry them as far down the road as is possible, right? So we want somebody with entrepreneurial drive. The other thing that I think about a ton is, and we all talk about wanting entrepreneurs with great ethics and character, but from my perspective, it's all the more important, even beyond the standard entrepreneur. Like, is this someone I would trust as a steward of my money invested in their business? But also, we want somebody who can communicate their commitment to ethics and character, because they're going to manage a staff in a highly regulated industry. So being the type of person who can stand in front of your team and say, this is how we do business, is very important, right? And then the third thing that I'm most kind of excited is a facet of our business about, is that we want people persons, right? Like a people person, sorry. Right? Because if you look at what goes into building a successful wellness center, it really is building a relationship with the local community. So whether it be from a patient perspective in medical markets, of having the credibility and building the credibility with your patients for them to trust your advice, or in a consumer market, for them to look to the staff in the store to understand what's available in the marketplace, what how and what products ought be consumed for particular outcomes. And then also just the fact that you're interacting with your community. And cannabis, for as much progress as we've made in removing the stigma, there's still some to be had, right? So there's still an element of really needing to engage with your neighbors in the community to make sure that they understand what role you intend to play in their neighborhood.
I appreciate that, and I, keying in on that, and want to get you in here, Wendy, to discuss this topic. Branding is very important, and how you fit into your community, or how you propose to fit into your community if you haven't gotten a license, is going to be really important in determining whether you're going to actually be able to successfully get a license. And I know you guys have had a lot of success. So Wendy, can you just talk to us a little bit about the brand, what you stand for, what has made you so successful, and what makes, patients look to you as a place they want to go to get reliable products, but also the communities you operate in to look at you and go, this is the model of the sort of business that we want to have in our city or county?
Yeah. So in patient first model, we have a pharmacist-led store here in Maryland in this medical market. And that patient first mentality is really about thinking, especially in the medical sector, what is the right to Jarrell's point, placing that right product with that patient, taking the time to listen, to hear what they want, not making sales for the sake of making sales, but really kind of like hearing the need and trying to find that therapeutic relief that they're looking for, which also requires a staff that is very well trained in understanding the products that you have, the endocannabinoid system, cannabinoids, terpenes, how a different dosage form affects someone in a different way, the potency, all these pieces to really kind of have a connective experience. But also it's in terms of the broader community, before we even opened, when we had identified our site location, we reached out to local leadership in terms of the council. We met with community leaders in a church basement and took them through our plans and our floor plan and who we were and what we were doing. And, I think that in general, in the cannabis sector, we have moved forward in the last so many years, but the stigma still remains. And as different states evolve, it's always going to be different. We know that different parts of the country see things differently than others. So I think you always have to be prepared to be having this kind of 101 conversation over and over again, and let people know that, this is a very normal business. We're here helping people with their medical and or if necessary adult use needs, and we're a leader in the community. We're here to have a good business. We're here to empower entrepreneurs to build a business that they can be proud of, that's valuable to their family. You want to have all these franchises, but I also want to have all of those we sponsor this little league team and we do that, like just things that you see in the community that just, you're just like a known local leader who does the right thing and who's doing right by yourself, your staff, your family, and your community.
I love that. And Jarrell, you're not off the hook, because I have another question about the fund.
Sure.
You were talking about the franchise opportunities, and how if you already had a license, you already have a retail location, you could buy into those franchise opportunities. But going back to the individuals who would be applying for the fund, for those who don't already have a license, we know there's going to be an application process with the state, or the municipality and the state in a dual licensing scheme. But just how does it work? What are the mechanics of navigating the actual application process to the city and the state? Are you going to take an active role in navigating the application process itself after somebody is chosen to, receive help from the fund? Or just kind of walk me through how that interplay is going to happen.
Sure. So an important thing to remember about licensing is more and more states are placing a significant emphasis on supporting local business owners, right? So from our perspective, we want to slot into a role that is supportive of that effort, right? So, and it makes perfect sense with franchising, right? We're supporting entrepreneurs who are building businesses in their community. So it's easy for us to communicate our intent, which is simply to kind of turbocharge their effort, right? To add more fuel to their fire, right, if you will. So from that standpoint, in the application process, there are parts of the application process that are very closely tied to how you'll run your business. And that's an area where we'll partner with the actual applicant, the franchisee, to make sure that they're building an application that accurately communicates what a foreign daughter wellness center looks like, right, in their application package. We'll also provide guidance in terms of what we will believe is helpful in terms of who they may want to contact and secure the support of. But quite honestly, they themselves need the support of their local municipality. So it's not particularly helpful for either myself or Wendy or other representatives from the franchise to go and interact with the licensing authorities and tell them, hey, just let us pick. Because the whole point of the licensing process is that they want to pick who the business owners will be in their community. So we can just be supportive of that process, right? So in terms of the active crafting of the document, there are parts where we'll offer lots of guidance, right? So whether it's about the business operations, what our brand means in terms of from a marketing standpoint, but there are lots of parts, a significant part of any application is who is the business owner, right? And from that perspective, the franchisee themselves will really have to own how they want to present themselves to the licensing commissions, and really kind of taking that as a first step. The application process is a first step in defining their relationship with the licensing authorities.
Got it. I appreciate that. And I just thinking about everything that you just said, I think a lot of what you're saying also goes back to some of the points that you brought up in January, and it's the benefits that are associated with actually franchising versus starting a business completely and wholly from scratch. So could both of you just sort of speak to like those inherent benefits of doing business with your company, as opposed, well, not necessarily as opposed to, but just some of the benefits that will come along with franchising versus starting the process from scratch?
Sure. So I'll jump in kind of at a high level, and you can think of and the reason I say at a high level is because so much of franchising is about that branding side that Wendy can really expound upon. But beyond the branding, there's also a significant component of just giving a franchisee or an entrepreneur confidence that they've seen this business model succeed in the past. So doing it in the same fashion in the case of their business leads to a higher probability of success. So that's anything from the store operations in terms of the type of inventory to carry and how many dollars to invest in your inventory, to the giving guidance around, what type of team you'd like to build to lead your store, as well as some of the other kind of just brass tacks elements of, this makes for a good location matched with this brand, that type of thinking that really enables us to both kind of demonstrate our confidence in what we've built at Curio, but then also puts an entrepreneur in a position where one of the biggest challenges as an entrepreneur, as you talk to entrepreneurs, is kind of moving in a space of uncertainty, right? So being able to say, all right, it's not so much that Curio has done this for me, it's that I know that this is possible to be successful. So now when I put my effort, when I really lean all of my weight into this endeavor, I know that there's success. Success is an option. It's a possible outcome of this exercise, as opposed to kind of starting out on your own and worrying if you're on solid ground, if you have enough money, if this is even something that would work anyway, right? You now have the confidence of a business system that has worked. So really the focus of your effort is just on executing it to your best ability.
Yeah, and I would add, before even getting into the brand, I think what's really important about what Jarrell is saying is that we come to it from two different sides. So in our Maryland operation, we are a cultivator, a processor, and a holder of a dispensary license. And we have proven in the dispensary space to create a very successful model that is that patient-centric experience that I was speaking about. But being on the wholesale side, we work with over 90 dispensaries in the state. And so we can see where those pain points are among independent operators. And so when we were thinking about how we put this together, yes, there was the nuts and bolts of what we do and well, we know what works, but it was also this lens of like, but where is it harder for them? Like if you come in, because many people who enter this industry often don't have retail experience, often don't have regulated industry experience, right? They win the license and you're building it all from scratch. And so when you think about it that way, we sort of thought about where are those primary pain points so that we can make sure that we address that in the toolkit that we're providing, in addition to what we do and we know works well. So I think that insight is really helpful and makes us a really great partner. On the brand side of things, I mean, that's what I'm partial to. So I think that's a pretty big deal. And a lot of times when, you listen to people talk about our industry and how it will evolve, it will be in the space of brands, whether it's the overarching brands of companies or branded products and things like that. So I think stepping in and harnessing an existing brand is a great place to be, but it also means that you have that infrastructure the corporate org chart of this franchise is a head of marketing, our regional marketing managers, is your social media support, is visual merchandising in your store. Everything that we do as ourselves today is sort of extrapolated to be available to franchisees. So that's not something you have to think about. And in our industry, like marketing and promotions is huge. I mean, it's how people drive patients and customers to their store day in and day out. So having the savviness of a team that can help you succeed in that lane right out the gate, I think is really important.
Amazing. I, really appreciate what you guys are doing in the industry and what you're doing for the industry. So ladies and gentlemen, Curio Wellness, father and daughter, to close up, can you just tell our viewers again, the website where they can apply for the fund and also how we can follow you both personally as well as follow the businesses on social?
Sure. So I'll jump in and point to fardaughter.com, right? So that's the website that's live as of this week and initiates contact with the franchise for those who are interested in learning more about the opportunity, either just the franchising or the sponsorship of the fund. with the goal of opening a franchise wellness center. Following me personally, LinkedIn is the easiest way. It's the only place I go. but I'm just Jarrell Registry on LinkedIn. I'm the only one. There aren't too many Jarrell Registries out there.
I echo Jarrell. LinkedIn is best for me as well. And I believe I'm the only Wendy Bronfine on there. So I think you can find me. And he's right, the website is the best place to go. I will also say that we will be at MJ BizCon in October. So if you're planning to be at the convention, you can come and find us on the floor. That would be a great way to meet the team and hear more about what we're doing.
Amazing, amazing. We are looking forward to meeting you guys at MJ BizCon. Sincere thanks for your time, your insight, your expertise. Looking forward to chatting again. Thank you very much, Jarrell and Wendy.
Oh, thanks a bunch.
Thank
It was
you.
great to talk.